I mentioned bureaucratic bullying in Britain, lots of B's there. That's a lot of alliteration. But it comes across in many different forms, and maybe I need to specify what I'm talking about here. If we just stick to banking, insurance, and healthcare, I can give you some notable examples and some related ideas about the nature of bullying. But we could also look into education and the role of senior management, often senior management that no longer or has never taught. So with banking, the unreasonable account closures instanced, of course, by Nigel Farage's experience with Coutts. Nigel Farage presents himself as a man of the people. What man of the people has an account with Coutts? Nigel Farage presents himself as a man of a people who went to quite a significant public school, a private school. And with these unreasonable bank closures, suddenly you have no access that the bank is closing, and no notice, leaving customers without access to their funds, causing significant distress. Even the threat of this is 2 or 3 days of anxiety to collect the information. That is, assuming you actually get that threat, because many times banks say that they've called you and you get these sort of one ring calls on your phone that even if you were Superman, you could never actually access. That counts as a call as far as banks are concerned. It's a trick. The complex complaint department, the complex process for complaining in banks. Banks have their own particular place for complaints. So the complaint is unrelated to the problem. This is carried out in many different businesses now across the UK. So even if you make a complaint, even if you get a gesture of compensation, 20 quid in your pocket, it's nothing, because it's not going to change the fundamental problems, because the complaints department and the department that deals with you, that has caused the problem, are unrelated. I'm going to feed back to the agent that spoke to you. Maybe, but your problem isn't with the agent. Your problem is that the agent has been instructed to behave in this offhand, cavalier, and rude way. And I'm going to terminate this conversation, says an agent, simply because you question what she or he has been saying. It's their decision to terminate. It's their decision to decide if there is, quote, bad language, which I presume there isn't. But there are many ways in which they can decide that the conversation can be terminated. Simply, all they have to do is press a button and the conversation goes. You've been waiting half an hour to get in touch. Suddenly, and you say, it's taken half an hour for you to answer the phone, and suddenly the phone goes dead. This control as part of the unreasonable complaint process. When it comes to insurance, you've got opaque policy terms. Insurance companies may well have themselves covered in the small print, but the complex jargon of their policies makes it impossible for policyholders to understand what is covered and what is not. And if you use an agent to arrange your insurance, even if you have nodded to this item, that item, you can't be sure that the agent has ticked those boxes accurately. And the problems don't emerge until long afterwards, when maybe you're making a claim, or maybe you're trying to check, and you suddenly find, why is that not covered? This would be true even if you had medical insurance. The people who are taking out the insurance, for whatever it is, are not the professionals. We are not the professionals. The insurance company is the professional. And we cannot understand this verbiage. And the professionals will draw attention to the security features and all this sort of rubbish and talk over you, because they've got to read this, because that is part of their protection. So the bits which you are interested in do not get highlighted. It's a trick. The prolonged claim settlements. I had my phone stolen about a month ago. It took a month to process the claim, to discover that the amount that the insurance company judged my phone was now worth was less than the amount that I would have to pay as an excess. In addition to the fact that I didn't have my IMEI number, eventually they told me how to get it, which is very easy, but they could have told me that at the beginning. They could also have told me how much my phone was worth now at the beginning, because they have lists. But this thing was eked out for a month, and innumerable telephone calls, all of which were unimportant. And instead, on the basis of the information that I was given with the first contact, I went out and got another phone. Unnecessarily. I could have got something very cheap and unimportant. I wasted money because I was relying on the assurances that I was given. Those assurances were later judged by the insurance company to be wrong, and I was given a payout. I was given compensation of, I think, £300 for being misled by the initial agent. Well, if the initial agent misled me so badly, which she did, why does the insurance company not honour the rubbish that she told me? On which rubbish I acted. The insurance company is Admiral, by the way, if you want to know which company to avoid in future. So, there we are. Healthcare. The Personal Independence Payment, PIP. I've talked about this many, many times in the past, and I've got many friends who have received PIP claim forms and have called me up in desperation, assuming that simply because I teach, I should know what these forms mean, how to read them, how to interpret them. I don't. I can't, because the stringent assessment processes, the stringent procedures, are couched in jargon and expected responses that I cannot possibly analyse or understand, because I'm not in the system. And they aren't either. The professionals give no advice, which leads to rather dodgy individuals giving advice on the internet, for example. If you say this, you will get the result you want. That's not help. That's some sort of backsheesh. And it's dodgy. It's worrying. And it's there because the professionals are involved in putting up a scam. It is a scam. The bureaucracy that underpins the PIP is so unclear. The people who are ill, who are disabled, who are in need of welfare support, cannot possibly know what answers are appropriate to trigger the support they need. PIP should be an utterly unnecessary document. PIP, the Personal Independence Payment, should be automatic on the basis of a medical report. So PIP should be something that is controlled by the NHS, not by a secondary department. This is a nonsense. It's been criticised for being overly strict and not accurately reflecting the needs of the claimants, and that's absolutely correct. It leads to unfair denials of benefits, and the appeals process for denied PIP claims can be cumbersome, irritating, discouraging, and in the end wholly inappropriate. it is denying people the benefits they deserve, and utterly wrong to be persecuting and bullying people who are already ill, the weakest in our society. One of the problems with modern bureaucracy is the excessive use of jargon and, quote, security. And there used to be an organization about encouraging plain English. That has gone. The organization may still be there, but it is clearly not efficacious. There's joy in using long words, but they have precise meanings. Modern bureaucracy doesn't use long words. Modern bureaucracy uses short words, Anglo-Saxon phrases that are ambiguous. But they're not ambiguous to the bureaucrats. They're ambiguous to the benefit claimants. They're ambiguous to us, to ordinary people, but they are not ambiguous to the organizations, and often they are wrong. Often they're used wrongly. How often do you use? How often do you do you hear bad grammar from bureaucrats? I hear it all the time. When I correct them, they take offense. But the excessive jargon. This is about a specialized use of language that is designed to confuse and to alienate the people who are not in the group, to alienate us, to prevent us from effectively navigating systems or understanding our rights. And this starts with the security password, the security questions, that organizations like banks particularly and telephone companies want you to pass through their password and their security questions for account access, which can be burdensome and can lead to frequent lockouts, particularly if you don't have your security question to hand or the right answer to hand. And you might think, oh, well, that's always the right answer. But, for example, somebody could say, what's your mother's maiden name? And if somebody is... It seems like an obvious question, but it's highly sexist and it's highly abusive. There are many people with more than one mother. And which mother are you referring to? Which mother did this person think of at the time when they said yes to that? Things are not always that straightforward. Date of birth, easy, for the most part. But these questions: what was the road you lived on as a child? What was your first pet? These questions are absurd, and you might be able to pick one of those questions, but three from a very limited range. What was your first car? Oh, in my case, I don't drive, so that's one question out of the way. I've never driven. Drove a tractor as a child. And then you come to the inadequacy of passwords. So they are a common point of contention when it comes to security, because to ensure a password is actually safe, you need to have serious length, and I believe even 12 to 16 characters long is not sufficient. It needs to be complex. It needs to have a mix of uppercase, lowercase characters, numbers, special characters. So it needs to be unique. And then you can add further security with multi-factor authentication, MFA, which sounds like a reference to something rude or medical, but it simply means you've got SMS codes, authentication apps, extra an extra level of security. But in fact, there are AI tools that can access most of this. I don't believe the passwords that we've got stored are safe at all. And so this facade, this fantasy of going through what's your secure, give me the third letter of your special security word. Well, what special security word? Your memorable word. What is your memorable? I have lots of memorable words. I work in academia. I have lots of memorable words. Which memorable word do you want? And again, the nomenclature for these different things. Is it your PIN? Is it your PIN number? Is it your memorable word? Is it your special word? Is it your password? These terms are used interchangeably, and the terms change. Banks change the way that they refer to these particular codes. And they assume that we, who only access these codes once every year or once every month at the very most, that we keep up to date with their changes. We don't. This is a form of bureaucratic bullying, and it goes on, and I'm sure you've got many other examples that you can identify. But bureaucratic bullying is out of control in the UK. It involves complexity and opacity to frustrate and disadvantage ordinary people, individuals, whether through convoluted processes, unclear policies, burdensome security measures. These practices significantly impact people's lives. If you are having a telephone call with one of the people who is invoking the security systems, it changes the tone of the conversation. You think you're calling up to complain, and you have to go through this security process, and you are no longer the person in charge. You are dwarfed by this bullying process, which is unnecessary. And these practices significantly impact people's lives, raise blood pressure, and destroy well-being. And addressing these issues requires a concerted effort on the part of government, on the part of banks and big businesses, to simplify, to humanize, and to reassure us, to simplify the interactions that we have, to humanize those interactions, to reassure us that those interactions are in our interests. I don't believe all this nonsense is in my interest. I don't feel reassured, and I feel tricked. This is about a sleight of hand. This is a magician's trick, and I'm not ready to applaud this one.